fel comments. Great. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Wyn. Well, croeso I gyfarfod prynhawn yma. Welcome to you all this afternoon for the Democratic Services Committee. We haven't had one for a while. So have we got any apologies in the first instance?
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Danny Beebe, and also apologies from Councillor Sarah Williams, who's on other council business. She's with the Fire Authority. There's training there for members today.
Of course, okay. Thank you, Carol. Right, the first issue is the election of Vice Chair. Have we got any nominations? Don't all rush at once. Any suggestions? Anyway, anybody of you with any interest in particular? No? Graham, you're laughing there.
Please.
Yes. Any volunteers?
I wouldn't know what to do. I've never chaired or vice chaired anything before, so I don't think I would fit the bill right now.
Okay.
Well, if nobody else is coming forward to chair, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Thank you, Graham. Are we all content? I can't see a rush of names. Yes.
I'm content. I'll propose second, whatever.
Okay. Well, thank you, Graham. Thank you, Peter. On that basis, unless I hear otherwise, we'll welcome you as Vice Chair, Graham.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham.
Minutes of the previous meeting, I did have a look at them this morning, and I noticed actually that most people that were in attendance at that meeting are no longer members of this authority. So I'm not sure where that leaves us. I think, Graham, you're about the only one that was left that can say they are a true reflection of the last meeting. But anyway, do you authorize me to sign them? That's what it boils down to, basically. I've read to them and I'm quite content with them.
Yeah, I'm happy with them.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Pete.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just quick point of information, if I may. We did try to have a meeting on the 18th of July, which obviously we weren't quora, but for a point of information, I don't know if that needs to be documented anywhere, because we did touch briefly on a local government consultation.
Okay. Fair point, which was circulated afterwards. Clive or Wyn, do you want to touch base on that?
Chair, go on, Wyn.
The decision of the members who were there, Chair, was that obviously, as we were in quorate, we wouldn't actually carry on with the formal meeting at all. So there's no record of a meeting because basically we never started it formally. But as the Chair said, we circulated the consultation document around members afterwards, and that response has gone off to Welsh Government by the due date, which I think was the 22nd of July. I've had no responses back from Welsh Government as yet.
Okay. Thank you, Wyn. Thank you. Okay, I should have mentioned also, in addition to the agenda you have in front of me, I have been approached and asked by Councillor Breeze to discuss another item at the end, and I have agreed for that to happen, which we'll come to in due course. Declarations of interest, therefore. Any in particular? I don't think nothing obviously strikes me, but I stand to be corrected. Yeah. If there aren't, therefore, we'll go straight into the meat of the matter. Therefore, number 5, our public protection strategy. Who is presenting this?
Hi, me, Catherine James.
Hi, Catherine. Hiya.
Public participation strategy is the document we're going to be looking at.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. It has been circulated, so hopefully everybody has had a chance to have a look at it.
Okay. Lowry, who pulled this together, is trying to get in, but she's unable to get in, Wyn, for some reason.
Okay, I'll try and invite her now.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, but we could crack on. So hopefully everybody's had a look through. So this is a chance for you to just feed in to this draft strategy today. So obviously this is a legislative requirement we have as part of the Local Government and Election Wales bill that came into force last year. So that they do say, you know, we need a participation strategy. It's always as well part of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, that importance of involvement and the public having a say and producing, you know, the work that we do as well. So this document here, we're hoping that you can give back some good constructive feedback in terms of how it can be improved. It's hopefully trying to lay out a clear and consistent engagement approach for the council. So on page 2, I don't know if you've all got it open or not, it just lays out a glossary of terms. Quite often people will use these terms intermittently and sort of in terms of participation, what is that? Consultation, engagement, co-production. So they're all very different things, but sometimes people get a bit muddled with some of them. So it's just clarity in terms of what you are trying to do, you know, when you are going out to the public. So just a bit of a description there. So it's important to point out as well that this is a document not only for internal use, but it would be published outwardly in terms of on our website as well. So the engagement, I say the engagement team, there is one engagement officer. So it's a very small team, but they follow the national principles for public engagement, of which there's 10. They've been around for a long time in Wales, and it's just a good practice really in terms of when you're doing engagement, this is the sort of thing you should do. So I'm not going to go into all of those, but one of the good points that you should always do is feedback to those people that have helped you know, that have participated in what us to do. Make sure you feedback what the results of that were. So that's one of the important things that we do. And also, there are the gunning principles. I'd not heard of these myself, but these are the principles that you have to use when you're doing formal consultations. So it just there's a lot of signposting in this document to other things rather than making it some gigantic beast. It just signposts you to the relevant places. So in terms of the meat of the thing, the first bit is around creating awareness of what we do. So it outlines, you know, what communication channels are available to us. Obviously these days we've got a lot of social media, etc. So there are lots of ways we can contact people, but not everyone's online. So it's, you know, the different methods that we could use for that. And also, so it just outlines what staff can do in terms of engaging, because some might be light, some might need heavier. For instance, the local development plan is going to need a lot of engagement. Generating interest in what we do. So it's not all about asking, having surveys, etc. There are lots of other ways that people can feed back to us. So it lists there on the bottom of page 3 in terms of how can you get in touch. So you can look at what the council are getting up to in terms of what meetings, etc. are on. You can ask questions. As you all know, obviously there are consultations, but it's about being open and transparent in the work that we are doing. There's the Powers People's panel. I think we've got a lot of people on that now, and we haven't really advertised it properly, but whenever people sign up to my Powers account, that is a box you can, well, I literally did it the other day, actually. I've said that I want to join, God forbid. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do to get in touch and help sort of change things. So that's listed. And then engaging and interacting with services. So outlining the different services that we do have in the council in that last bit, and the different levels of getting in touch as well. So you could just be kept informed about things, or you can actively, you know, we can actively consult with people, and full-on collaboration in terms of public service board, regional partnership board, etc. So there is a lot of work here. Another biggie with engagement is accessibility. I'm not sure how much you all know about accessibility, but we obviously have to, whenever we do things, we have to run them through a checker, accessibility checker, to make sure that people who may struggle with sight or hearing, etc., so that it works with screen readers. So that's a new thing that we always have to make sure we do with everything. And seldom heard groups as well is, you know, trying to get in touch with those. Quite often we'll have different forums that do sort of have contacts with different people, so that helps us, but we always struggle in terms of the 8 protected characteristics. We do struggle getting in touch with certain groups, so if anyone does have any ideas on how that can be improved, that'd be really useful. I'm just thinking everything obviously is bilingual, as you know, you all know, English and Welsh. The Wellbeing Information Bank, I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this, but we've had it for I don't know, about 5 years nearly. So that's on our Powys website. So if you just typed in Powys Wellbeing Information Bank, we've got up to 100 reports in there, both in English and Welsh, which give us information, and people can get information about different bits of data like demographics and all sorts of things. That's quite worth a look. It tells you about things wherever possible down to a 13 locality level as well. Oh, good one. Larry's actually made her way into the meeting now. So that's a really useful one to look at if you do have a bit of time. This document as well just outlines the fact about when you are carrying out surveys, to have a statistically sound sample. So for Powys, we have a population of around 133,000-ish people. So for a statistically sound sample, you have to make sure you've had 384 responses back, which doesn't sound that much really, but apparently that is the workings out behind a statistically sound sample. In terms of feedback, then it outlines further down into, like with cabinet reports, press releases, etc. We are really into hearing back what people think, and we do have our Engagement HQ, which is our shared engagement platform that I think the RPB invested in a few years ago now, but it's a shared engagement platform that we can use, the health board use, and whenever we build surveys on there, you can make it so that they're not just private to our own organisation. We can share the responses with others. So that's a step forward. I know the climate survey, Larry was saying the other day, there was actually an option on there for people, if they wanted to be kept in touch and get more involved, they could tick a box to sort of, so they could, get further involved, rather than just a survey, they could do more. In terms of measuring our success then, in terms of engagement, we have several measures that we collect on a quarterly basis. The usual ones are the number of people that we've engaged with, the percentage that were satisfied with having an opportunity to have their say, and the percentage that spoke positively about the council. So they're the biggies that we report on, but we also monitor the number of surveys that we publish, the number of people on the Powys People's Panel, and the number of people that are visiting that engagement hub. So they're the sort of 6 measures that we do have at the moment, but if anyone's got any ideas on other things that we could look at that might help us understand that more. So this engagement strategy itself has to be renewed once in every electoral cycle. So we have to do one, every sort of 5 years. And then every time we do update that, we have to go out for consultation. So this here is draft, but obviously once we've had a bit of an opportunity now to look through, and we'll make a note of whatever comments, etc., you can tell us. We're open to suggestions. But in terms of that, if you do give us the go ahead to sort of go out to consultation, that has to be out for a minimum of 12 weeks. And we'll have to share that with partners as well. So we'd be looking at kind of the end of November to have that back in, look over what has come back in, amend wherever possible. And so in terms of publishing, etc., it would be early next year, in early 2023. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but don't know if you've all got it open. Do you want to work through it from the beginning? And I'm open to suggestions.
Well, can we take perhaps a few questions first of all? A lot of it is fairly common sense, but Hailwen, you've got a hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think the thing that sort of sprung out to me was the fact that a lot of this information now is online, and obviously, that is the way forward, fully appreciate that. But obviously we have residents who do not and will not have access to this online information. So, where can they access this information? Is it through the local library services or local council offices? That was the one thing that sort of really leaped out at me going through the document earlier. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That's a good point.
That's a very important point. There's a danger of assuming that everybody's got accessibility to things online, when that's not the reality in many communities, of course.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any comments or observations or questions? Or does Lowry want to add anything to what you've already said?
Hi, sorry I was a bit late. I couldn't get into the meeting.
No problem.
Nothing to add. I think Catherine's covered it. I don't know whether you mentioned it before I logged in, Catherine, but we added that e-petitions link in, and I've changed
I
a couple of So the original draft that you had on the agenda at the very end, it had the consultation dates as May 2022, but obviously local elections happened and everything like that has gone on since. So I've updated that in the new draft. So the one that goes out for consultation will have all the correct dates in it.
Good. Thank you much. Okay, I think the best thing would be if people have any comments, observations, perhaps following this meeting, to forward them to Lowry or Catherine and approach it that way, perhaps, unless there's any other comments at the moment. I can't see a rush of hands or anything. Clive.
Chair, all I wanted to do is to thank Lowry and Catherine and the team for pulling this together. I know that other local authorities like ourselves have found this a difficult document to get to grips with, but it's something that we have to do under the new Act. So my thanks to Lowry and the team.
Yes,
Likewise. Lowry. Certainly not me.
Likewise.
Lowry has put a lot of hard work into this.
Da iawn, diolch yn fawr. Thank you much.
Okay, so in terms of comments back, so is that enough for today? You're just going to send comments back within?
I think that's the best thing. I've read it through. Hopefully others have had the opportunity. If not, I would suggest that they in the next coming few days respond likewise. Clive.
Chair, I think that Catherine was hoping to get authority to go to consultation from DSC today. And
Right.
so my suggestion would be that if members members can submit their comments in the next, let's say 14 days,
Yeah.
and those comments will be incorporated within the document and out to consultation if that's approved by DSC.
Yes, thank you, Clive. Well, yes, exactly. Well, unless I hear otherwise, I assume naturally that we give that approval. Do we have any comments or anybody that doesn't want it to be out? Well, with silence is golden, I assume therefore that everybody approves for it to be circulated and consulted, and therefore, yes, Catherine, you have the relevant approval.
In 2 weeks' time, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And obviously, I've made a note of your comments as well, Councillor Heilwyn, so we'll look into that too.
Great. Thank you much. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, fine. On that point, therefore, we'll move on to the next issue, which is speaking to motions. Perhaps I should stay silent on this one because I tend to take advantage of this more than most.
Surely not, Chair.
Clive, are you leading on this one?
Yeah, yes, Chair. For those members who weren't present before we went live, my apologies for not being on video. My camera was working this morning. It's not working this afternoon, and Wynne has tried to help me, and we've still not get it through. So apologies for not having my camera on. I simply can't do it this afternoon, so apologies. Chair, you'll see that the report in item 6 is to consider making recommendations to council with regard to the time which members can speak upon motions. Rule 447 of the Constitution in its original form provided for 10 minutes for the proposer and 5 minutes for everybody else. But in November of 2020, DSC and council recommended that we undertake a trial whereby we reduce the speaking time to 5 minutes and 2 minutes. We have done that ever since November 2020 rather, and but we've never actually reviewed the effects of that trial period, and that's what today's about really, to seek members' views as to whether or not 5 and 2 minutes is appropriate, and whether we should make amendments to the Constitution fully to make that a permanent change. And Chair, there's also a bit which flows out of that, in that how much time does a portfolio holder have to speak on motions? One might say it's 2 minutes, but we've actually, in looking at this, found that there's an anomaly within the Constitution, because when dealing with closure motions, and that's Rule 454(8)(2). It specifically says that where there's a closure motion which follows an amendment, the portfolio holder in that case has 5 minutes. So there's an anomaly within the Constitution which we must correct. But it's views of members of this committee to make a recommendation we're after. Are you content that we remain with 5 and 2, and also to consider how long of a portfolio holder should have? So that's the issues for discussion this afternoon, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Well, you've heard the message. What are your views, comments, experience? Councillor Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple, if I may. First one on 2.51 of the report, line 2. I just wondered whether after speakers there, should that be relating rather than relation? Or have I...
Eagle-eyed Councillor Pete, sorry, you're right.
That's all right, no problem, just want to check. And then still on 251, I suppose listening to Clive, but on it being an experiment and that, but obviously as a new councillor, 2 minutes for me for a seconder appears to be fine, but it just felt a little bit short to me for other speakers. And I thought perhaps the other speakers should be the 5 minutes, the same as proposers, so as they can put out their case, their views, opinions, the same as a proposer can. And then I suppose finally, if I may, Chair, was just in 253, just my thoughts were I think it should probably apply to all motions, basically as a principle, I suppose, and to just keep things simple.
Okay. Chair, if I can come back and give
Yes.
raison d'etre for the trial, really. The reasoning behind this was to keep council meetings moving forward at an appropriate pace. I can see Councillor Elwyn nodding there. That was the reason for the change. We felt that with 10 and 5, the meeting was getting a bit bogged down and with lots of repetition. So that was the reason for it. But Councillor Pete, happy to consider whatever views members take with regard to the timings. It has to be approved by full council going forward, but for DSC to make that recommendation.
Yes, it is fair. We had, for Councillor Pete's benefit, we did have experience of very long meetings for a number of reasons, and it was part of the process when we did these changes to try and tighten things up and get some sanity back into things. Anyway, Councillor Graham, then Councillor Aylwyn, and Councillor Peter Lewis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would completely support this proposal that Clive's putting forward. I'm not 100% sure about the portfolio holder one, but from experience, I think this has been a big success. You know, for the benefit of councillors, the new.
Oh.
Is it me, Chair, or is it Councillor?
No, I think we've lost Graham, have we?
Councillors, you know, some of our meetings.
Oh. Sorry, Graham, you're going in and out. We're losing you.
Graham, can I suggest? Graham, can I suggest that you turn your video off?
You know, we were having. Oh, can you hear me now?
That's better. Yeah, try now.
Yeah, how's that? Any better?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just saying I fully support what Clive is putting forward there. I'm not 100% sure about the portfolio holder one, but certainly for the benefit of new members, you know, some of our meetings, as the chair says, we're rumbling on and people talking for the sake of talking, and completely repetitive statements being made. So I think with the advantage of strong chairmanship, and we've had that for the last 2 years, and I'm sure we're going to have it at full council again this term. The system worked really well, and I'm more than happy to see it continue in these times.
Thank you, Graham. Aylwyn.
Graham has literally said everything I was going to say. So, as Clive mentioned, we've had far too much repetition, so I won't say another word. Fully endorse what Graham said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I completely agree with Graham and Councillor Aylwyn. I remember the times when you could spend 15 minutes in just an opening just the proposing and seconding. It just got boring, and the flow of the meeting just disappeared. So I completely agree with Graham and all this proposal from Clive. Keep it short. You can see enough in 5 minutes, and the seconder can just, quite often the seconder just backs up what the proposer is saying. So yeah, I completely agree with the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what's been said, and really and truly, I would treat the portfolio holder exactly the same as everybody else.
Thank you. Well, and can I say from my experience, as one has been talking far too often, some would say, but that's another thing. In reality, 5 minutes, I find, focuses minds. And if you can't make your points in and your rationale or context within the 5 minutes, you shouldn't be doing it anyway, I would say. That's my take on it. Anybody else with any comments or any questions? If not, I think the message is quite clear there, Clive, that in reality, we agree with what has been trialled over the last couple of years.
Okay. So, Chair, in terms of portfolio holders, I think those who have spoken with regard to the time for portfolios have suggested that it should be the 2 minutes. Can I just get that agreed, even if it's by silence?
Yes. We happy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine. We'll approve that. Yeah.
Chair, and that means that we will make a consequential amendment to the closure motion rule, which is 454.8.2, and we'll change that to reflect that situation.
Great. Well done.
And Chair, we'll make those recommendations, and we'll have the wording available for full council when we consider this matter going forward.
Well done. Thank you much. Okay, well done. Well, the next item is representation on committees. Just before we come to that, we have, as group leaders, touched on this already and thought it was relevant to look at, bearing in mind the number of members have gone down from 73 to 68. And it has been a challenge at times to get a cross-section representation on some committees this time around. And also the danger of some people actually having to do a great deal of work as compared to what would have been usually expected. So anyway, Clive, are you leading on this again?
Thank you, Chair. You stole my thunder to a large extent, because this is something which was raised by group leaders.
Yeah.
But of course, in deference to DSE, DSE is the people that make the decision whether we go ahead and do this review or not. And that's why we're coming to DSE this afternoon, just to ask whether members feel that it's appropriate to look at the review these numbers. I think the one number, which the one committee of 21, which we have, which is planning, is really large. It's almost one third of the whole of council, just over 30%. So and we just need that. If members feel that we need to go forward, obviously we need to do this taking the various committees with us. So that if you say yes, please proceed with the review, we'll undertake to have discussions with the chairs and with the members of those committees to see what they think about it, and then report back to DSE at its next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, as a member of planning, I'm well aware that some other authorities, their planning committees actually something like 14 or 15 members, so we're considerably larger in powers. Any comments or observations on this? Councillor Pete, first of all, and Councillor David after.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, yeah, just again, I suppose with the new councillor hat on, I suppose the first comment I've got is I'm not sure if the review is needed because the numbers that are currently there haven't worked in the past are unwieldy, or if the review is needed because we can't fill all the seats that are on committees. So that would be my first point. I guess my supplementary one then is, if I looked at the numbers reducing councillors from 73 to 68, and if I did some simple maths, that's just a 7% reduction. And I guess that would mean even committees, say like planning and the other ones with 14 councillors, if you extrapolate that, you'd only be sort of reducing those numbers by 1. So I suppose, is it a bigger review that's required rather than just trying to extrapolate numbers? And is the review because previously it was unwieldy and didn't work, or just because we can't fill the seats?
Thank you. Clive, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Pete. I think the view is that with the old 73, the number, look, and we did review it on several occasions with the numbers on committees, and it was just about working. What we have now is the parties are finding it difficult to fill all the seats. And I think that's something that we need to look at. So it's a part of a larger review, but we can obviously take into account the views of the committee members themselves.
Thank you. Councillor David. You're on mute, David. You're on mute, David.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find the arrow. How many non-aligned members have we got, and how many of those are not on any committees?
Wynne can give us the answer to that, but Councillor David, what group leaders have done is to ask, insofar as unallocated seats from committees are concerned, is to offer them out to the non-aligned members. So that we've already tried to engage those in that activity.
Yes,
I understand what you're saying. I mean, anybody could become non-aligned and have a cushy number really on council, where others, you know, if you're in this small group, I mean, you can take our group for example, because we got a shared post in the cabinet. That puts a lot more pressure on everybody else to take on the committee.
Yeah.
So we are working, you know, much harder then than a non-aligned member who might not be on anything because they'll may not choose to take up a position. And I think, I don't know, you addressed that one, but I don't think that's fair because they're still picking up the same amount of money and not got to serve on any committee. And is there a means of sorting that out with this review?
Councillor David, we can certainly have a look at that as part of the review. The way to sort it out would be for council to make it compulsory and mandatory for members to sit on at least one committee, and it's for members to decide that, not officers have to say. That's a decision for full council. But we could take that as part of the review process. But thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hailwen.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Once again, fully endorse what Councillor David has just said. He's made some very strong and valid points there. And obviously, you know, we're all aware that we are struggling to fill some seats on some of the committees. We have an awful lot more new members now who are in full-time employment. And I think, you know, have not been made aware of what their involvement and responsibility should be when they become a county councillor. And I think that needs to be addressed, whereby they do have to sit on a number of committees, because at the moment, far too many are being picked up by returning members.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, any other comments, observations? No? Okay, well, I think Councillor Peter.
Could you just ask, like, there's a lot more lay members coming in now. Does that affect our numbers?
No.
Or are they on top of the committee numbers?
They are in essence on top of the committee numbers, Councillor Pete.
Yeah.
And if I could sort of summarise the views of DSC, I think you would like a little bit of a wider review about participation in committees, not just for non-aligned, but for all councillors. And let's have a little review and find out what the facts and figures are.
Yeah. Yes.
And come forward with a suggestion to DSC as to how we can address that going forward, but at the same time deal with the numbers issue on the various committees.
That is a good reflection, I would say, of the conversation. Yes.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Unless we hear otherwise, therefore, we will give that the green light to move forward.
Chair, we'll try and do that as quickly as possible. There was a caveat to that in terms of the numbers which were on the finance panel, the governance and audit committee, and the pensions and investment committee. You'll see from the report that we were suggesting that we've only just gone through and reviewed those.
Yeah.
So if just for the sake of clarity, we won't be reviewing those
Yes.
if GSC agree.
Yeah, well, I think that's common sense. As I said, that has been done fairly recently, hasn't it?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make sure that members were fully appraised. I know it's in the report, but I missed it out, so apologies.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you much. Okay, then that's the agenda as was. There's one other item which I've agreed previously to discuss before. Councillor Breeze was particularly keen to discuss this. It's to do with the broadcasting, and it is relevant to our committee, broadcasting of committees. There's been some publicity about this and discussions in recent weeks. Over to you, Councillor Graham.
Yeah, I'll leave my camera off, Chair. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to raise this issue, which I feel is really important enough to be considered by the Democratic Services Committee today. And it is, as you say, the matter of scrutiny, planning and other committees, such as this meeting, not being open to the press or public in live format, as they have been in the past. I previously raised the issue in a question to the leader on July the 4th, with Councillor Gibson-Watt himself having responsibilities for communications. And it was of particular disappointment that it took the leader so long to respond to the question, and instead choosing to answer a press inquiry on the subject and stating there that it had been a decision made by a previous administration. Well, last week, a Freedom of Information request made by the local Democracy Reporting Service revealed that the decision to deny the press and public live access was in fact made by the executive management team on May the 26th and not the previous administration at all. So I'm choosing to believe that the leader made an error when he blamed the previous admin rather than purposely misleading this authority and the public, but whichever way, I hope he will be offering an apology. The decision to deny the right of live access to scrutiny, planning and other committee meetings is, in my opinion, direct contradiction of the leaders of the council's title as the cabinet member for an open and transparent Powys, and I expect him really to act accordingly on this. For background purposes, prior to COVID restrictions being put in place, the press and public had open access to all committee meetings. During COVID restrictions, the press and public had Zoom or Teams access to committee meetings, but now they're only offered a recording facility, which is totally unacceptable to me. We have been made aware that switching from Teams to Zoom transmission has and will incur additional costs, which to my knowledge were never properly discussed, certainly when I was a member of the previous admin as a member of the cabinet with responsibilities for corporate governance and communications. There were sound reasons for adopting a hybrid system, which were backed by the previous council, but in the interests of running an open and transparent authority, it must not be at the expense of public scrutiny. And we all have a duty to ensure that. So denying the people of Powys and the press access to meetings reflects very, very badly on this authority, I feel, and certainly doesn't present an image of an open and transparent organisation. In fact, it flies directly in the face of the public participation strategy, which we have just discussed. So I would like to propose a recommendation goes from the Democratic Services Committee to full council for an immediate return of press and public access to live broadcasts of planning, scrutiny, employment, democratic services, and all other meetings which previously were accessible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I second that proposal. I absolutely agree with everything that Councillor Breeze has just said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clive, sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can I just correct Councillor Graham on a factual inaccuracy, really?
Okay.
Prior to the start of the COVID pandemic, only council meetings and cabinet meetings were streamed live. There was public access to other committee meetings, but people had to attend those meetings in order to have that access. What we've done now, and of course, what we were during the start of the pandemic, we were able to use Teams, and we were able to stream those on a live basis without any cost, no cost at all to Powers at all, but at the expense of the facility to translate into Welsh simultaneously, and that went on for too long. And of course, now what we really need to do, with some members wanting to come into meetings themselves and others content to have meetings remotely, is to have a hybrid system. And so it's the reintroduction of Welsh translation and the introduction of a hybrid system that has meant that we can no longer use Teams as a mechanism to do this. And so when we now webcasting live, there is a cost to the organization, and that cost is not yet, if we were to webcast all those committee meetings live, there is a cost to the organization, which is not in the budget, which was agreed by council in March of this year rather, sorry. So there is a cost to this. What we are doing, of course, is, as we're doing with this meeting, we are recording it and we are publishing it on the website, and that publication takes place within 24 hours. So what we are in effect doing is doing what we did prior to the pandemic, namely webcasting in full council meetings and cabinet meetings, they being live, but we're also recording and publishing the recording within 24 hours.
Thank you, Clive. Just to correct one thing there, or news to all of us, is there has been a development now with Teams. I've actually got an email from the head of the translation service in the last couple of days, and I'm aware of it through other sources also, that translation is now available on Microsoft Teams. It's a fairly new thing, so it might be worth looking into that and might resolve some of these issues.
Chair, when will we be able to give you an update on that? But there's also an update with regard to Zoom. When will also give us an update on that? DFC has the full information.
Fine. When Tisha Dod mewn, and then we'll go to Councillor Pete afterwards.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Yes, a couple of things on there. Teams, you're quite right. Microsoft have been promising translation for about 2.5 years. It's now, we understand, being rolled out on a worldwide rollout. We haven't got it as yet as an organization that I haven't seen, because I'm anxious to see it and test it. However, that's for Teams only, won't be available for Teams Live. So we're still stuck that we can't go back to the live versions that we've got. It's only Teams. So we have to record and then broadcast again. So that's one part of the problem. It's actually quite a complicated issue, this, and I won't bore you with all the technical details because there's a lot of range of different things. For example, when I was broadcasting before from Zoom, I was using YouTube as a link to send it up onto the website so people could see it. The good part of that is the public could see it. The downside is those sitting in the meeting could hear the simultaneous translation, the public couldn't. So you've got that little element of complication. Hybrid throws a whole new element of other complication onto the top of all of this. I'll stop now before I get too detailed and bore you completely, because it is really, really complicated. What we're looking at the moment, Zoom have come back to us and said, have you thought about using Zoom webinars, which actually may be a different and better version for you? We've tested it so far. We haven't actually tested it with a hybrid version as yet. That's the next stage of the operation. We're testing it. We've tested it as an ordinary meeting. There are benefits in that it broadcasts simultaneously to the public. The public can actually hear the simultaneous translation live on the website as well, which is great. The downside is once the meeting is finished, the recording is stopped completely. So we still have to record it and upload it. That's fine. We can probably do that. The one thing I'm talking to Zoom about at the moment is how we get the second channel, which is the translated channel, recorded and saved, so we can actually publish that as well, because we need both to go up there, as happens currently on the Public Eye site. That's the only way we can currently do it. So it's something we're certainly looking at. The other development we are working with at the moment, we've got some different bits of technology in our committee rooms. There's Teams sort of machines, as for simplicity of actually calling them something. But we've actually managed to hold a Zoom meeting on one of those by connecting to it. Webinars at the moment is not playing ball with us and refuses to connect. But IT and myself are on the case, and we're trying to solve this one. We think we can probably do it, and that there's a way around it, but there's something else, because then that will give us the option as well, is not tying up the chamber with just a hybrid machine and a few people in there. We could use some of the smaller rooms. So it gives ourselves a bit more flexibility and a few more options. So, you know, we are working towards it. We're not actually sitting here saying, no, we're not doing anything towards it. I'd like to get back to the position where we are broadcasting. The other part that's been thrown into the equation is obviously Welsh Government's 21 Act, which basically says you only have to broadcast the council meeting. We've gone further than that and actually putting the cabinet out as well. Okay, fine. I understand where members are coming from. It's mostly the press who are raising the issue with us. We've had, I think, one set of comments from the public in relation to a controversial planning application only, that it wasn't being broadcast. But the ideal situation would be to go back to where we are. The technology is something that we are fighting with, because there is no solution out there at the moment that is actually perfect and brings everything. As members who are returned to council have seen, where we've had to have workarounds for things like voting, hands up facilities, etc., council meetings. I think I'll stop at that point, Chair, because I'm likely to lose the audience.
Yeah. Okay, diolch yn fawr, Wyn. Yes, so I think we all appreciate it's a number of challenges. Councillor Pete.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of points on Councillor Graham's proposal there. I suppose firstly I was quite disappointed in the comments about the leader incorrectly blaming the previous administration, and I feel that that needs to be corrected somewhere and in some format. I agree with the comment as well about public participation strategy, which we've just talked about, and we're looking to engage with the public. So I think this would help us on that. Yes, I would be more than happy to support the proposal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brighouse.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement with Councillor Graham over his comments, especially again in response to public participation. One concern I do have is in response to the costings of this, of getting it up and running again, in light of the current more national situation we're in with the cost of living crisis. It's impacting not just our residents, but ourselves as a service as well. And I think this has to be taken into consideration looking forward with the inflation going up as it is, how much of a value to the service what it's going to provide and where we can make those compromises.
Thank you, Arch. Thank you for those comments. Any other comments or observations?
Chair, can I just ask Wyn to indicate to DSC what the extra budget we will need to find in order to accommodate this? Wyn, what's the extra amount we need?
Depends on the solution, really, Clive. Because if you're looking at,
should we do on the worst scenario? Because we will, of course, if we can get it done as cheaply as possible and for nothing, why wouldn't we do it? Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't we do it? But if we have to continue where we are at this moment in time, which is using Zoom and Public Eye, what's the additional amount we would need?
The additional cost to us for doing every other meeting other than council and cabinet is somewhere between 80 and 90,000 pounds a year.
Okay, so I thought I'd just mention that for members so they have that in their minds as part of this meeting. So I hope you didn't mind, Chair.
No, fine. there are two issues here. There's the issue and the principle of accessibility and openness. But there is obviously the knock-on financial issues also, taking into consideration the complications of IT and different programs and things, as Wynne has rightly referred to. Would it be a way forward to actually set a timetable or try to say that this needs to be resolved within 3 months or something of that nature?
Happy to do that, Chair. I think when we should be able to identify whether or not within that 3 months this new webinar system from Zoom is going to be able to do it. And of course, we are going to need to test it if we go down that route. The Teams issue, the Teams Live issue, well, whilst they still don't have translation facilities on that, members, and you know, we've been promised it by Microsoft for 2 years now. Whether they're going to reintroduce it into Teams Live, we simply don't know, and I wouldn't hold my breath that will take place very shortly. That's why we are relying on Zoom at the moment.
Okay. Okay, well, we have, I don't know, Councillor Graham, do you want to come back?
Just a sec. Yes, thanks, Chair. Just to say, I'd be happy, yes, to put some time scale on it, but if we're going to take this as a recommendation to the next full council, that's over a month away anyway, isn't it?
Yes, 6th of next month, I think, isn't it?
So if by the time we get to full council, we're saying within 2 months.
Well, that's just a suggestion by myself. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's we of focusing minds and trying it's trying to resolve the matter, isn't it, one way or the other?
Yeah. So it could either be 3 months from today's meeting that we're suggesting it takes place,
Yeah.
or it's going to have to say 60
Well,
days, say, from the next full council meeting. So I'd be happy to amend the proposal to that.
Yeah. Well, fine. Okay. Well, perhaps that would help matters in that way. There is, as I said, a motion and a seconder there. Are we all content with that recommendation to full council? I'll take it by silence. Yeah. If I don't hear anything, Councillor Pete.
Sorry, Chair, I was just saying I was in favour. I didn't know how to raise
Right, okay.
it.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, I take it as silence unless I see here otherwise that has been approved.
Thank you, members.
Okay,
Thank you all.
fine. Thank you much. Thank you for that. That is all I have. Anything you want to add at this point, Clive, or not? Or we shall close the meeting.
Nothing extra from me, Chair. Only to thank members for their time this afternoon.
Great. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day and see you next time. Thank you much.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Bye-bye.